The child watched quietly as his father flipped through a worn Torah, its edges softened by years of study. Around them, the flicker of candlelight danced on the wall, casting shadows that looked like question marks, silent reminders of the mysteries life carries. The room was small, but the knowledge within it was vast. The father, a modest shopkeeper, paused, not to teach, but to live the lesson. He folded the page, turned to his son, and said something that would follow him for life. Wealth is not gold, my son. It is wisdom that knows how to turn even loss into blessing. In the Jewish tradition, wealth has never simply meant coins or possessions. It is not flashy nor loud. It breathes in silence, in the lines of ancient texts, in the creases of elders' hands, in the patience to delay gratification for a better tomorrow. It is a mindset refined through centuries of exile, survival, and rebuilding. And for those who truly seek lasting wealth, not just money, but the kind of abundance that sustains generations, the secret is not found in chance or luck, but in thought, in discipline, in the architecture of thinking itself. Across continents and centuries, the Jewish people have lived as both wanderers and wisdom keepers, expelled, persecuted, scattered, but never broken. How does a people retain their strength when their land is taken? They place their wealth not in things, but in thoughts, in learning, in ideas that cannot be stolen. Wherever they go, they carry with them a culture of questioning, of reading between the lines, of asking, why does this work? How does this fail? And what can I learn from both? You may believe that getting rich means finding the right opportunity at the right time. But pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if given a fortune today, would you truly know how to preserve it, to grow it, to pass it on in a way that elevates, not burdens, the next generation? Most don't lose money because they lack money. They lose it because they lack the thinking that sustains it. This is where the Jewish mindset shifts the game. From a young age, Jewish children are not just taught to learn, they are taught how to learn. They are encouraged to debate, to challenge, to wrestle with contradictions. In the Talmudic tradition, two scholars might argue opposite sides of a problem, not to win, but to understand deeper truths. This mental discipline fosters something extraordinary, the ability to see angles others miss. In business, this becomes a superpower. Take, for example, the Jewish merchant in 19th century Eastern Europe, who, surrounded by economic instability and persecution, didn't just survive, he flourished. While others focused on short-term gains, he invested in systems. He documented every trade, tracked patterns, and taught his children not just what to do, but how to think about doing. Decades later, even after war erased his name, his methods remained, and from those methods, generations rebuilt. Wealth begins in the mind, in how one approaches risk, in how one relates to failure. In Jewish thought, failure is not a wall. It is a gate, a lesson, a pivot point. It is said in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, who is wise? He who learns from everyone. The failed deal, the missed investment, the person who deceived you, each carries something valuable if you dared to look beyond the wound and into the wisdom it left behind. And so you too must ask yourself, what is your relationship with knowledge? Do you read to affirm what you already believe, or to uncover what you do not yet know? Do you listen to argue or to transform? Are you seeking riches only in your bank account, or are you building a way of thinking that turns every experience, good or bad, into capital? Because the Jewish way of thinking is not merely about financial wealth. It is about resilience, structure, legacy. It's about creating a mindset so sharp, so steady, that even when everything is taken from you, you can still build again, stronger, wiser, more enduring. You want to get rich? Then begin not with a business plan, but with your mind. Begin by asking better questions, by learning from every conversation, by honoring discipline over impulse. Begin by understanding that wealth is not something you chase, it is something you build, one thought at a time.
In the quiet hours of the morning, before markets awaken and before the world resumes its restless race, there is a space, an inner silence, where true wealth is forged. Not in noise, not in the thrill of the next big opportunity, but in patient thought. That's where the Jewish way of thinking continues to diverge from the modern obsession with instant gratification. It is a philosophy built not on rush, but on rhythm, on the understanding that real value compounds in time, not in haste. For centuries, the Jewish people have been deeply rooted in the idea of Shabbat, a sacred pause, a day of rest. But more than rest, Shabbat is a declaration. I am not a slave to the clock. I am not defined by output alone. I think, therefore I build. In a world where hustle culture screams louder every year, imagine the power of choosing to stop, reflect, and renew. That is not weakness. That is discipline. That is wealth of the mind. And in finance, discipline is everything. Let's look at the concept of delayed gratification, which modern science has only recently championed as a predictor of long-term success. But the Jewish mindset embraced it long ago, not as a tactic, but as a way of life. The understanding that sometimes, to have more, you must first learn to be content with less. That to expand, you must first preserve. That saving is not the opposite of abundance, but the foundation of it. Consider this. In many Jewish households, wealth is taught through practice, not lecture. A child is given a small amount, not to spend immediately, but to divide. One part to give, one part to save, one part to invest, one part to enjoy. In this division lies deep philosophy. Money is not just a tool for consumption. It is a responsibility, a spiritual exercise, a mirror reflecting who you are and what you value. You see, the Jewish way of thinking about money never removes ethics from economics. Business is not just about profit, it's about purpose. A deal that benefits only one side is not a victory. It is an imbalance. And imbalance, sooner or later, leads to collapse. That's why trust, reputation, and fairness are not soft values in Jewish finance. They are strategic assets. In fact, in tight-knit Jewish communities, a handshake was once as binding as a contract. Why? Because the weight of one's word was heavier than gold. You may ask, how does this apply today, in a world dominated by algorithms and anonymity? It applies more than ever. In a marketplace crowded with noise, trust is currency. Integrity is leverage. And those who build relationships, not just transactions, build empires that last beyond one generation. This, too, is central to Jewish financial philosophy, intergenerational thinking. The understanding that what you build today is not truly yours unless it can be passed on, sustained, and even improved by the next generation. In Jewish homes, children are not sheltered from money talk, they are invited in. They're shown the ledgers, the lessons, the principles. They are taught how to think, not just what to do. Because wealth without wisdom is a curse. It enslaves rather than liberates. And here lies the deeper truth, one that most self-help books miss. Getting rich is not the goal. Becoming someone who can carry wealth with dignity and wisdom, that is the goal. And that kind of person is not created through luck or even talent. They are forged in fire, through struggle, through study, through discipline. You may have failed in the past. You may have made reckless decisions, wasted money, broken trust. That does not disqualify you. On the contrary, in Jewish thinking, failure is an invitation. Each fall is a chance to rise with deeper insight, firmer steps, and a wiser heart. Remember the story of Rabbi Akiva. He began studying Torah at age 40, an age many considered too late. But he did not accept that limit. He studied with the passion of a child and the endurance of a warrior. Years later, he became one of the greatest sages in Jewish history. His lesson? It is never too late to rewire your mind, to begin again, this time with purpose. And so, look at your life today. Where are you leaking wealth? Not just in money, but in time, attention, and trust. Where are you making decisions based on emotion instead of clarity? What would happen if you paused, like the Shabbat, and chose to think differently? Because that's where everything changes, not in your job, not in your income, not in the stock market, but in your mind.
In a quiet study in Prague a century ago, a Jewish banker once told his son, "Never let the coin shine brighter than the idea that earned it." That sentence, passed like a sacred inheritance, captured an eternal truth. In the Jewish tradition, wealth without wisdom is merely noise, temporary, unstable, and ultimately hollow. It is understanding that gives money its power. Without it, even fortunes can evaporate overnight. This is why education sits at the heart of Jewish financial philosophy, not as a social ladder, but as a spiritual foundation. From ancient yeshivas to modern boardrooms, the pursuit of knowledge is constant. But this knowledge is not memorized, it is dissected. In Talmudic training, students spend hours unraveling a single line of text, arguing both sides of a paradox, probing contradictions not to find a final answer, but to refine their thinking. This process creates minds that are agile, skeptical, and precise. In the world of finance, where uncertainty is the only constant, this mindset is gold. You see, the average person fears uncertainty, but the Jewish mindset dances with it. In exile, in diaspora, in endless transitions, Jews were forced to adapt again and again, changing professions, learning new laws, navigating unfamiliar markets. And so, over time, adaptability became more than a survival skill. It became a form of intelligence. A Jewish merchant in medieval Spain might have dealt in textiles one year, then lent capital the next. He didn't panic, he pivoted. And in doing so, he understood something essential. Wealth is not locked in one profession, one model, or one time period. It is locked in how you think when everything around you shifts. So ask yourself, how do you respond to change? Do you freeze or flex? When a venture fails, do you collapse or do you harvest the lesson buried inside? Jewish thinking teaches that every fall contains within it the seed of a rise, if you are willing to think differently. And thinking differently requires solitude, space, time to reflect. This is why many Jewish thinkers, from Maimonides to Rothschild, emphasized contemplation. The inner life is not a luxury, it is a tool. Because wealth that is not guided by inner stability quickly becomes chaos. Without an inner compass, even success can become a trap. So what is this compass made of? First, clarity. Knowing what you value and what you're building, not just for today, but for generations. Second, covenant. In Jewish law, wealth is not yours alone. It is entrusted to you to uplift others. That's why charity, tzedakah, is not optional. It's a duty, but not just a moral one, a strategic one. Giving roots you in the community, builds trust, and creates flows of goodwill that return in unseen ways. Third, humility. A trait often misunderstood in business.
But in Jewish tradition, humility is not weakness, it is precision. It is knowing what you don't know, being teachable, and never allowing success to blind you to your own flaws. Even kings in the Bible were required to carry a copy of the Torah at all times, a reminder that no one is above wisdom. Now imagine how different your financial life would be if it followed these principles. If instead of chasing trends, you cultivated timeless thinking. If instead of comparing your life to others, you audited your values. If instead of fearing risk, you learned how to measure and manage it, like a chess player thinking 5 moves ahead. There is a reason Jewish families emphasize teaching over inheritance, because money given without mindset becomes a curse. But mindset given, even without money, becomes a legacy. That's why Jewish households often prioritize education over material luxuries, because they understand this simple equation: education compounds faster than interest. This is not theory, it is lived history. In the wake of the Holocaust, when survivors had lost homes, savings, and entire families, many began again, not with wealth, but with ideas, with skills, with education. And within one generation, they rebuilt businesses, communities, even industries. That kind of recovery is not luck. It is mindset. It is the refusal to be defined by loss. It is the quiet fire that says, "You can take everything from me, but you will not take my ability to think, to learn, and to rise." That fire is within you too. But it is not lit by comfort. It is lit by purpose. By asking yourself, what do I want to build? Not just for me, but for those who come after me. By understanding that getting rich is not about getting more, but about becoming more aware, more precise, more disciplined. Because when your thinking is clear, your money becomes a tool, not a tyrant. And you stop chasing wealth and start creating it, one principle at a time.
There is an ancient story told among Jewish scholars about a rabbi who was once asked, "Why do the wise never fear poverty?" The rabbi paused and answered, "Because they never carry their treasure in their pockets. They carry it in their minds." This answer, simple as it sounds, holds the essence of why Jewish financial thinking has survived and thrived across time and turmoil. It shifts the axis of wealth from external possession to internal capability. And once you grasp that, your life begins to change. Imagine for a moment that you lost everything. Your job disappears, your savings vanish, your business crumbles. In that stillness, when everything is gone, what remains? If the answer is nothing, then you were never truly wealthy. But if what remains is knowledge, resilience, and clarity, then you are not just prepared to rebuild, you are already rebuilding. This is the kind of invisible capital that the Jewish mindset treasures above all else: mental equity, the ability to adapt, to strategize, to take small resources and multiply them with wisdom. Not everyone sees this power, but those who possess it walk with a quiet confidence that no storm can touch. This confidence is built early. It's not about privilege, it's about pattern. In many Jewish homes, money is not taboo. It is discussed. It is demystified. Children are not shielded from financial conversations, they are engaged. Why? Because ignorance breeds fear, but knowledge breeds agency, and agency is the first step toward freedom. You too can begin this journey, no matter your age, your income, your past. It starts with reframing your understanding of money, not as a prize, but as a process. Not as something you earn to spend, but something you learn to steward.
And stewardship means knowing how to manage, protect, and grow wealth with intention. One of the most powerful teachings from the Talmud says, a person should divide his earnings into three: one-third for living, one-third for investing, and one-third for emergencies. This principle may sound simple, but it's profoundly countercultural. It resists the modern impulse to consume now and worry later. Instead, it honors balance, it respects tomorrow, and most of all, it trains the mind to be strategic rather than reactive. Think about your own finances. How much of what you do with your money is driven by emotion, fear, desire, comparison? How often do you pause before spending or investing and ask, what purpose does this serve? What long-term vision is this connected to? These are not just financial questions, they are psychological ones. Because the truth is, your money is a mirror. It reflects how you think, what you fear, and what you value. In Jewish financial thought, this mirror is polished through ritual and routine: weekly accounting, monthly giving, annual planning. Each cycle is a spiritual and strategic act, an affirmation that money is not chaos, but order, that your financial life can be as sacred as your inner life if you treat it with the same care. And so, over time, a remarkable shift occurs. You stop chasing money, you start shaping it. You become the kind of person who does not rely on chance, but builds systems, strategies, and safeguards. You become a person who earns trust, not just income. And in doing so, you quietly begin to create the most valuable thing of all: legacy. Legacy, in the Jewish worldview, is not simply what you leave behind. It is what continues to live through others because of how you lived. It's the business that endures because you built it with honesty. It's the child who handles money with care because they saw you do the same. It's the community that flourishes because you invested not just in profits, but in people. And this, perhaps, is the most radical part of Jewish financial philosophy, that wealth is not about having, it's about being. Being someone of clarity, of discipline, of wisdom. Being someone who learns from mistakes, who sees setbacks as stepping stones. Someone who understands that failure is not final, but refusing to learn from it is. The world today teaches you to chase. The Jewish mindset invites you to build a mind so strong that no loss can destroy it, a vision so clear that no noise can distract it, a legacy so deep that no generation can forget it. So pause, reflect, ask yourself not just how much money you want, but what kind of mind you must develop to earn it, keep it, and grow it with grace. Because once your mind begins to think like this, like the sages, the scholars, the survivors, you'll no longer dream of being rich. You'll become rich.
A man once stood in the courtyard of his home in Vilna, holding nothing but a book and a ledger. The war had taken everything: his shop, his savings, his family name, but not his thoughts. He sat by candlelight and began again, with trembling hands and unshaken resolve. His son would later say, "My father taught me that when you lose everything, you find what truly builds wealth: faith in knowledge and discipline in chaos." This is the quiet fire behind Jewish financial endurance: not noise, not fame, but a relentless return to principle. You see, in the Jewish mindset, wealth is not an event, it's a habit. A slow layering of decisions, repeated over years, guided by clarity. This means knowing the difference between earning and deserving, between getting lucky and becoming ready. Many people want wealth, but few prepare for it. Fewer still know how to handle it once it arrives. Because wealth without self-mastery becomes a curse disguised as a gift. Jewish philosophy does not worship wealth. It studies it. It humbles it. It places it in context. Money is not the goal, but the echo of how well you've thought, planned, and behaved. And if the echo is loud and clear, it's only because the source, the mindset, is solid. Ask yourself, if tomorrow you were given 10 times your current income, would your character expand to match it, or would your insecurities grow louder? Would your generosity increase, or would fear make you cling tighter? Without the internal structure, external success collapses. That's why in Jewish thought, character precedes wealth, not the other way around. Consider the teaching of Musar, a Jewish ethical tradition focused on refining personal traits. It asks questions that are rarely found in financial books. Are you patient? Are you honest when no one sees? Can you delay reward for a greater good? These are not philosophical luxuries. These are economic strategies. Because people with these qualities build trust, make fewer emotional errors, and attract lasting opportunities. It's why Jewish communities place such emphasis on reputation. In many circles, your name, Shem Tov, your good name, is more valuable than your bank account. Why? Because a clean name opens doors that no amount of money can force open. And in a world addicted to shortcuts, playing the long game is radical. But this long game requires vision and courage. It means saying no to fast profits that conflict with your values. It means choosing sustainability over speed. It means building systems that your children can inherit, not just assets. And that begins with you. You must become a steward, not just of money, but of mindset. You must learn to ask yourself daily, what did I build today that will last beyond this week? What did I invest in today that grows me, not just my wallet? What story am I writing with my actions, and who will read it after I'm gone? These are not ordinary questions, but this is not an ordinary path. Jewish financial thinking is not about trends, it's about truth. It's about becoming a thinker, a builder, a guardian of wisdom. It's about remembering that every dollar you spend is a vote for the world you want to live in. Every decision is a reflection of your internal architecture. And if that architecture is weak, if it's built on impulse, vanity, or fear, it will crumble, no matter how high you rise. But if it's built on values, study, and clarity, then even when life breaks you, you won't stay broken. You'll adapt, you'll rebuild, you'll teach others to do the same. This is what legacy truly means. It's not about leaving behind a fortune. It's about leaving behind a formula, a mindset so solid, so tested, that others can step into it and grow. It's about passing down not just money, but a way of seeing the world, a way of making decisions, a way of living with meaning. And so, in the final reckoning, what makes someone truly wealthy? Not the zeros in their bank account, but the principles that guide their every step. The strength to think deeply, to act wisely, and to rise from failure with more clarity than before. Because wealth is not something you own, it is something you become.
And so we arrive at the deepest layer, the place where numbers no longer matter, where profit yields to purpose, and where the mind must reckon with what it truly seeks. Here, in the quiet beyond ambition, Jewish financial wisdom teaches its most profound truth, that success without soul is poverty in disguise. That unless wealth serves something greater than self, it will devour the one who holds it. It's here that the journey shifts from external achievement to internal alignment,
because every empire built without ethical roots eventually collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. But those who build slowly, with thought and principle, create something more than riches. They create peace of mind. In Jewish tradition, this peace is called shalom, but it means more than no conflict. It means wholeness, integrity, the joining of the outer and the inner world. To be wealthy, in this sense, is not merely to have much, but to be whole while having much, to carry prosperity without being consumed by it. But wholeness cannot come without reckoning with failure. And here lies another quiet power in the Jewish mindset, the sacred embrace of failure as a teacher. Where many cultures see failure as shame, Jewish thinking sees it as process. In the Talmud, scholars would record not only the correct interpretations, but also the rejected opinions, those that were flawed, mistaken, or contradictory. Why? Because in every misstep lies insight. Every wrong turn maps the terrain. In fact, some of the deepest truths were discovered by studying the mistakes others made and daring to question why they made them. You too must reflect on your failures, not to bury them, but to mind them. What patterns emerge in your financial mistakes? Where did emotion override logic? Where did ignorance wear the mask of confidence? These questions are not easy, but they are vital. Because the person who refuses to learn from failure is condemned to repeat it, while the person who studies it earns the right to rise again, stronger, wiser, more precise. And precision is everything. In Jewish thought, there is no wealth without attention to detail. The great financiers, the shopkeepers, the scribes, they all knew that fortune favors not the loudest, but the most meticulous. It is said that a Torah scroll must be written with such care that even a single incorrect letter invalidates the entire text. Imagine living your life with that level of reverence for every action. That's not perfectionism, it's purpose. To live with that kind of purpose, you must ask yourself hard questions. What are you really working for? Is it status or freedom? Is it applause or impact? Is your wealth just a number, or does it carry a mission? These are the questions Jewish thinkers have asked for generations, and these are the questions that create legacies, not just lifestyles. Legacy, after all, is not built in the public eye. It is forged in small, consistent choices. In teaching your child how to delay gratification. In choosing honesty when deceit would be easier. In building systems that outlive your name. In writing your principles down so they don't vanish when you do. The greatest Jewish financial lesson is this: wealth begins in the mind, but it is perfected in the heart. And when the mind is clear and the heart is aligned, the hands know what to build. You become not just a person of means, but a person of meaning. So now take stock, not of your accounts, but of your architecture. What have you built? What will remain when you're gone?